After my husband passed away, I was consumed by longing. I took the German diary he often wrote in front of me. I went to ask my granddaughter, who had just returned from studying in Germany, what my husband had written. To my surprise, my granddaughter chuckled and said, "Grandpa's quite the romantic, writing you love letters." Huh. Every single line began with "My dearest Hannah." I was thunderstruck. All those years of shared hardship and devotion, it was all a lie. I've never had a German name. And his first love was named Hannah. His diary was filled with longing for this woman. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn, returned to the early days of our marriage. This time, I refused to endure the silent treatment any longer. I choose to let us both go. The ceiling was a stark, blinding white. I shifted slightly, and the man beside me seemed to stir. Turning over in his sleep, I looked at him, Siming, just in his early 20s. Still had a touch of youthful innocence about him. He was truly handsome. It's a shame, though, the most handsome men often have the coldest hearts. He noticed my gaze and frowned with impatience. That familiar look in his eyes sent an inexplicable chill through my heart, as if I were thrown back into those countless days and nights of enduring his emotional abuse. On mornings like this, he would never speak to me kindly, responding only with cold silence or biting sarcasm. Each word a stab to the heart. My eyes fell on the calendar by the bed, June 12, 1988. It was 1988, and Siming and I had just passed our third wedding anniversary. Gripping the edge of the bed, a wave of nausea hit me. I tried to steady myself, but my whole body felt weak and drained. "Siming," I whispered, my voice faint. He cast a casual, icy glance in my direction. "You're awake. Then get up and make breakfast. Stop dawdling." "Siming, I think I have gastroenteritis. Could you take me to the hospital?" I bit my lip, the words coming out in a tone that was almost a plea. He paused for a moment, but quickly resumed adjusting his shirt in the mirror, as if he hadn't heard me. Before we got married, I was deeply drawn to his refined, scholarly demeanor, but now, I find it all utterly ironic. He finally deigned to speak. "I have something to do. Go by yourself." I watched him lift his foot, and I knew, he was going to Hannah's wedding, just like years ago. When he abandoned me at our own wedding to rush to her graduation ceremony. "Siming," I called out to him, my voice soft but laced with a barely perceptible tremor. He glanced back at me, his gaze cold and tinged with impatience, as if to say, "Is there anything else?" In his eyes, I was nothing more than a dispensable wife, a tool to placate his family's pressure to marry. In over 3 years of marriage, he barely touched me. The most intimate contact we ever had was the perfunctory kiss he planted on my forehead the day we got our marriage license. A cold sweat broke out on me. "I'm in so much pain, can't you see that?" He gave a scornful laugh and turned to walk away. I knew it. I meant nothing to him. That's just how he is. My concerns are beneath his notice, and my feelings are of no consequence to him. I forced myself to get out of bed, my stomach churning violently and my vision going dark in waves, but I still managed to drag myself to the hospital. The doctor said it was due to prolonged mental stress, combined with an irregular diet, that led to acute gastroenteritis, requiring a few days of hospital observation. Lying in the hospital bed, I gazed at the sky outside the window, my mind flooded with 1,000 thoughts. Is this really all there is to my life? Am I really going to muddle through this miserable existence like I did in my last life? No, I refuse. Given a second chance, I'm going to live for myself this time. I got home to find Siming wasn't back yet. A note was lying on the table, scrawled in his flamboyant handwriting. "My mom wants dumplings tonight. Remember to come home early to cook." I let out a cold laugh, crumpled the note into a ball, and tossed it in the trash. Then, I opened the wardrobe and pulled out that red dress I had treasured for so long. I secretly saved up to buy this dress while Siming was away on a business trip. I always wanted to wear it for him, but I never found the courage. Standing before the mirror, I pinned my hair up high, revealing my slender neck. I picked up the phone and dialed a number. "Hello, is that Sister Wang?" "It's me, Ching. I've made up my mind. I want to come back to the troupe." I put down the receiver and looked at my reflection in the mirror, a confident smile curling at the corner of my mouth. As evening fell, Siming returned. He looked at me with surprise, as if puzzled that I wasn't acting as I usually did, greeting him the moment he stepped in, fussing over him, and handing him slippers and a hot cup of tea. "You're back." I sat upright in the living room, holding a cup of hot tea, my tone calm. "Let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow." A flicker of admiration crossed his eyes at my appearance, but it vanished almost instantly. "What are you going to do? Get a divorce?" As those 2 words left my lips, it felt like a massive weight I'd carried in my chest for years had finally lifted. and a profound sense of relief washed over me. Do you have any idea what you're saying? He finally looked me in the eye, a hint of mockery in his tone. I know. I met his gaze and said, slowly and deliberately, I want a divorce. He ignored me and poured himself a glass of water. I'm hungry. Is there anything to eat after we get divorced? You can go find your Hannah however you like. I won't stand in your way. What is all this nonsense? He frowned impatiently. Hurry up and get me something to eat. I'm starving. Chin Siming. If you loved Chin Hannah so much, why didn't you just marry her back then? Pressure be damned. So why won't you divorce me now? What nonsense are you talking about? His eyes darted away, unable to meet my gaze. Nonsense. I let out a cold laugh, tears welling up and spilling over. Chin Siming. Search your conscience. After all these years, have you ever treated me right? What did you even take me for? I stood up, pouring out the years of pent-up hurt and fury that had been festering in my heart. In 3 years of marriage, how many times have you touched me? How many times have you shown me any real care? Who else is in your eyes and heart, besides your first love, Chin Hannah? How dare you write a diary about loving her right in front of me? What do you take me for? You. How did you know? I let out a cold laugh. And why wouldn't I know? Chin Siming. Did you really think I wouldn't notice a thing? I looked at him, my eyes filled with disappointment and sorrow. Chin Siming, you're nothing but a coward. You don't dare defy your parents' arrangements. You don't dare pursue your so-called true love, yet you have an emotional affair within your marriage. Using it as an escape from reality, you are a coward through and through. Enough, Swaching. You've gone too far. You want a divorce. Fine, if that's what you want, we'll go tomorrow. His furious shout echoed in the empty room, but my heart was utterly still. I looked at him, my gaze calm. All right, I said, then turned and walked into the bedroom, closing the door behind me. The sky was just beginning to lighten when I opened my eyes to find the space beside me empty. Chin Siming. He really did just slip away without a word. I gave a bitter, self-mocking laugh, a tangle of unnameable feelings churning inside. I decided to head to the city's song and dance troupe first. Before I got married, I was the star performer of our troupe. Many said I was a born dancer, but for the sake of this marriage, I gave up my career. I gave up the stage I loved, and devoted myself wholeheartedly to taking care of him in our home. When Sister Wang saw me, her eyes lit up, and she quickly pulled me over to sit on the sofa. Ching, you're finally here. I was starting to think you were too proud to come back, Sister Wang said with a chuckle as she peeled an orange. I took the orange and gave a faint smile. Of course not, Sister Wang. I'm sorry to have worried you. Noticing my low spirits, Sister Wang said earnestly, Ching, I don't know what's wrong, but life must go on. A woman really should have a career of her own. Don't you think? I nodded. Sister Wang was right. I couldn't just drift through life aimlessly like I did in my past life. Don't worry, if you're willing to come back, your old position is still yours. The troupe is preparing to stage a new dance drama. If you're interested, you can take a look at the script first, Sister Wang said, pulling a thick script from a drawer and handing it to me. I took the script, flipped through a few pages, and saw it was a love story adapted from a folk tale. My interest was immediately piqued. So, what do you think? Do you like it? Sister Wang asked me. I nodded. I really like it. Thank you, Sister Wang. I'm glad you like it. Why don't you look over the script first, and we can discuss any thoughts you have. Sister Wang patted my hand encouragingly. Ching, I believe in you. You can do this. As I looked at the script in my hands, a long-lost passion welled up inside me. That's right. I still have dreams. My life is full of possibilities, and I can't let myself be defeated so easily. Spending the whole day at the song and dance troupe really lifted my spirits. When I got home in the evening, the house felt empty and lifeless. I simply cooked a bowl of noodles and ate while lost in my thoughts. Just then, a frantic knocking suddenly sounded at the door. Who is it? I asked, opening the door as I spoke. Ching, you need to get to the hospital, quick. Something's happened to your Siming, Sister Gu from our building said, her face a picture of barely concealed glee. Sister Gu, what on earth happened? Don't scare me like that. I wouldn't dare make this up. I saw it with my own eyes. Your Siming was carried out of the guest house, his face covered in blood. It was awful. You'd better go see for yourself. After saying this, Sister Gu, afraid I'd ask any more questions, scurried off in a flash. I didn't have time to think. I just grabbed a coat and ran straight to the hospital. I finally saw Chin Siming lying in the hospital bed. His face was covered in bruises, as if he'd been beaten badly. Chin Hannah sat weeping by the bedside, her eyes red and swollen, looking utterly pitiful. Siming, how are you? Are you in a lot of pain? I'm fine. it's just a scratch." Chen Siming gave a weak smile and took Chen Hannah's hand. "Hannah, don't worry about me." I stood in the doorway, watching the scene before me, feeling nothing but bitter irony. "Ching, you're here." Chen Hannah seemed to have noticed me and called out my name timidly. Chen Siming noticed me too. His eyes flickered for a moment, but he said nothing. "Chen Siming, what's going on with you?" Before he could speak, Chen Hannah began to explain tearfully. "Sister Ching, please don't blame Siming. It's all my fault. I was supposed to fly back to Germany today. Siming was just here to see me off. I never expected my husband to get the wrong idea." I let out a cold laugh. Since when does seeing someone off require a trip to a guest house? Chen Hannah's face went pale. She bit her lip and fell silent. "Chen Siming, I want a divorce." My tone was flat, betraying no emotion whatsoever. At those words, Chen Hannah immediately looked up, a flicker of hope shining in her eyes. She knelt before me, pleading through her tears. "Sister Ching, I know you want a divorce, but please don't." Brother Siming was just confused for a moment. "He still cares for you in his heart." Watching her act like that just makes me sick. After all these years, she's still playing the fragile, innocent victim, as if everything is always someone else's fault, and she's forever the one who's been wronged. Chen Siming struggled to his feet and comforted her with a pained heart, saying, "Hannah, don't beg her. Get up, the floor is cold." It was the first time I had ever seen Chen Siming treat a woman with such tenderness and affection. And that woman was not me. I let out a scornful laugh. "What kind of act is this? Two married people, clinging to each other like that?" Chen Siming roared. "Swa Ching, haven't you caused enough trouble? Do you have to be so aggressive?" I stared at him coldly and said, word by word, which part of what I said wasn't the truth. "Chen Siming, if you don't go with me to get a divorce tomorrow, I'll go to your newspaper. I'll let everyone see the fine mess you've made." Upon hearing this, Chen Hannah cried even harder. Desperately shaking Chen Siming's arm and mumbling something incoherently, Chen Siming's face turned ashen. He was a man who guarded his reputation fiercely. If this matter really blew up, his career as a university professor would be over. "All right, I agree." I gave a satisfied nod and turned to leave the hospital room. Back home, I started packing my things, planning to move into the troops' dormitory first thing tomorrow. This apartment was allocated to Chen Siming by his school as staff housing. I never intended to claim it, since I didn't contribute any money towards it anyway. There aren't many valuable things in the house. Even after all these years of marriage, Chen Siming only gives me a paltry amount for household expenses each month. On top of that, I have to scrimp and save to send money to his mother. How could I possibly have any savings? I sat on the edge of the bed, looking at the empty room. And a wave of desolation washed over me. After all these years of marriage, I gave my all to this family, yet in the end, I have nothing to show for it. I thought that if I was just good to him, he would eventually be moved by my efforts. But I was wrong. Some people's hearts are like stone, no amount of warmth can ever reach them. I stuffed a few simple clothes and daily necessities into my suitcase. I decided to leave everything else for Chen Siming and his true love. After packing, I sat in the empty room and suddenly felt a wave of relief. After all these years, I can finally be free of this terrible marriage. I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau first thing the next morning. Chen Siming was already there waiting for me. He looked utterly worn out, with dark circles under his eyes and a scruffy beard. As if he'd aged 10 years. When he saw me, his lips parted as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he remained silent. The divorce proceedings went smoothly. In less than half an hour, we had our divorce certificates in hand. As we stepped out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Chen Siming called out to me, Ching, are you really going to do this? What about us?" "That's enough, Chen Siming," I cut him off. "It's over. From now on, let's just be strangers." With that, I turned and walked away without a backward glance. The dorm was Spartan, furnished with just a bed, a desk, and a chair, but I was perfectly content to get back to peak condition as fast as possible. I had to push myself harder than anyone else. I even stretched my legs while sleeping. Mastering the fundamentals is just that crucial. I haven't exactly let myself go these past 3 years of marriage, but I am a bit out of practice. As Sister Wang adjusted my hairpiece, she asked, Ching. "Are you sure about this? You're really going through with the divorce?" I smiled at my reflection in the mirror. This face of mine had good bones. It was just worn down and weary from all the hardship. Ever since the divorce, she's been glowing more than ever. "Sister Wang, you really don't need to worry about me. I know what I'm doing." Sister Wang sighed and didn't say another word. I was standing in front of the mirror, fastening the buttons on my practice uniform. I heard someone calling me from outside. Ching, There's someone here to see you, they're downstairs. I hurried downstairs and saw Chen Siming. He was wearing a crumpled shirt and looked much more haggard, a far cry from the impeccably dressed university professor he once was. What are you doing here? I asked coldly. He lowered his head, his voice low. Give me the family savings, I need the money. His words made me laugh in disbelief. Chen Siming, you have the nerve to ask me for money. What savings do we even have? The little money I've scraped together all these years isn't even enough to buy your mother supplements and gifts for your precious first love. Chen Siming's face darkened. Swachingching, how can you say that? That money was what my mother rightfully deserved. Hannah, she's not well, she needs care. I was so infuriated by his self-righteous attitude I almost laughed. I pulled a ledger from my bag and threw it in front of him. Take a look for yourself. I've kept a record of every single household expense over the years. Chen Siming opened the ledger, his expression growing increasingly grim. See it clearly now, Professor Chen, I said with a cold laugh. If there's nothing else, don't bother me again. He closed the ledger, a flicker of embarrassment crossing his face. Ching, after all, we were husband and wife. Alright, Chen Siming, let's part on good terms. Please don't come looking for me again. Ching. How do you wash a white shirt so it doesn't turn yellow? Also, what should you pay attention to when ironing clothes? I was taken aback for a moment, staring at him in surprise. Who would have thought that Professor Chen, who's always kept his hands clean of any real-world toil, would ever deign to come down to earth? Go ask your mother, she's got plenty of experience in that department, I said coldly before turning and walking away. In the following days, Chen Siming was like a changed man. Making frequent trips to the song and dance troupe. One moment he'd be asking if the dish would be too salty with extra soy sauce, then he asked me how to clean the water stain off the floor. He asked me cautiously, Ching, I noticed a button came off my shirt, could you sew it back on for me? I rolled my eyes and said irritably, why don't you ask your Hannah to do it? Hannah, she doesn't know how to do these things. What? Just because I know how, I'm obligated to help you. Chen Siming was left speechless by my retort. I continued, Chen Siming, let me make this clear, I'm no bodhisattva, I don't have that much compassion to spare on you. If you want to live your life, then live it well, and don't bother me. Chen Siming kept on complaining incessantly, finding fault with Hannah one moment and criticizing her the next, as if he had suffered some grave injustice. I was getting sick and tired of hearing it. Tell the security guard directly not to let him in anymore. Peace and quiet at last. Every day, I train until my legs go numb and my clothes are soaked with sweat, but looking at my increasingly lighter, more agile self in the mirror, my heart fills with strength. I was like a butterfly reborn from its chrysalis, greedily soaking up the sun and rain, yearning to burst forth with the most dazzling brilliance on stage. The day of the performance finally arrived. Adorned in exquisite makeup and a magnificent costume, I twirled and leaped under the spotlight. Every single movement was infused with all of my emotion. It was a farewell to past sorrows and a hopeful gaze toward a brighter future. As the curtain fell, thunderous applause erupted from the audience, lingering in the air. In the crowd, I saw Chen Siming standing there, his gaze complex as he looked at me, a bouquet of flowers in his hand. After the performance, I took off my makeup, changed back into my own clothes, and walked out of the theater. Chen Siming walked over, handed me the flowers, and said, congratulations, Ching, your dancing was truly beautiful. I took the flowers and said quietly, thank you, can we start over? He looked at me, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. I was taken aback for a moment, staring at him. I suddenly felt he was a stranger. Chen Siming, I don't have any feelings for you anymore, I said calmly, it's over between us. His face went pale. After a moment of silence, as if he had finally made up his mind, he spoke, Ching, I regret it. Hannah is simply not suited for a life together. She's too pampered, too dependent on me. I feel exhausted and suffocated every single day. I looked at him and suddenly found the whole situation rather amusing. Once, he treated me as if I were invisible, speaking to me with nothing but cold indifference. Yet now, he's trying to win my sympathy by badmouthing another woman right in front of me. Chen Siming, that was your choice. I couldn't help but sneer. Who was it that, for her sake, couldn't even be bothered when my mother was sick in the hospital? Who was it that, to buy her a gift, even forgot my birthday? Now you realize she's not wife material. And you come crawling back begging for a remarriage. Dream on. Yet, stubbornly, he persisted. Swaching, I've already swallowed my pride. What more do you want from me? But I know I was wrong now. I really do. Hannah and I never got the marriage certificate. Can we start over? Chen Siming, you know what? every single day since the divorce. I'd been filled with so much regret. His eyes lit up, and he said in a trembling voice, Ching Ching. You. What I regret is ever agreeing to marry you in the first place. I regret not divorcing you sooner. The light in his eyes faded. Chen Siming, it's over between us. You need to let this go. With that, I turned and walked away, ignoring him. Ching Ching. Chen Siming's voice called out from behind me, tinged with panic and despair. Don't go. I didn't look back, walking straight ahead. My steps were light, my heart utterly calm. I went with my colleagues from the troupe to celebrate the successful performance. Everyone was chatting and laughing. The atmosphere was wonderfully warm. Ching Ching, you were amazing today. Holding up her glass, Shally said excitedly. I feel like you're back to your old self again, just radiating with light. Absolutely, Ching Ching, you've become more and more beautiful since your divorce. Another colleague chimed in agreement. I smiled, raised my glass, and said, come on. To our brilliant performance, cheers, cheers. The next day, I received a notice from the song and dance troupe. They said a new film was in the works, and after the director saw my performance, he felt my demeanor and look were a perfect fit for the female lead and wanted to invite me for a screen test. My hands trembled with excitement as I held the acceptance letter. I began to pore over the script word by word, delving into the character's inner world, as if possessed. I plunged headlong into the script. What on earth are you doing? A shrill, angry shout yanked me violently out of the world of my script. Before I could even process what was happening, a rough hand seized my hair, yanking it so hard my scalp screamed in pain. I gasped sharply from the pain and looked up to see the harsh, unforgiving face of my mother-in-law. Useless woman, why are you here instead of home taking care of Siming? Chen Siming and I are divorced. What I do now is none of your business, I said coldly, prying her hand from my hair with force. She curled her lip in disdain. Divorced. It's only because you couldn't give him a son that my boy wanted to leave you. Hannah is pregnant now. You get your ass home right now and take care of her. Once the baby's born, you'll be its second mother. I can't believe my ears. Chen Siming and Chen Hannah getting together is one thing, but now you actually expect me to go back and be their slave. Get lost. I'd rather be unwanted by anyone than be trampled on by your Chen family. You little brat. You think you're all grown up now. Huh, how dare you speak to me like that? The mother-in-law was furious and raised her hand to hit me. Oh my goodness, what's going on here? Let's talk this through calmly. Exactly, don't resort to violence. It's so unseemly. Seeing this, several colleagues nearby rushed over to hold back the mother-in-law, all talking at once to try and calm her down. Held back by several people, the mother-in-law couldn't move a muscle. She ground her teeth and spat out, "You just wait, this isn't over." I watched her furious, retreating figure and let out a cold laugh. I'm not the meek, submissive switching I used to be, but I still underestimated her. She spread rumors everywhere, calling me a loose woman and a tramp, saying that Chen Siming and I divorced because I couldn't stand the loneliness and had someone on the side. At first, I didn't care. A clear conscience fears no accusation, so I let her say whatever she wanted, but I never imagined that rumors could twist and distort as they spread, and their destructive power was immense. That evening, I was rehearsing alone in the practice room. The door to the practice room was gently pushed open from the outside. Thinking it was a colleague, I spoke without turning around. It's so late, why haven't you gone home to rest? A sudden chill swept over me from behind, before I could react. A rough, large hand clamped over my mouth, another arm wrapped tightly around my waist, holding me in a vice-like grip. I was utterly terrified, struggling desperately, but my assailant was too strong. I couldn't break free. A lecherous voice whispered in my ear, "Your mother-in-law says you can't go a day without a man. Let me take good care of you." I recognized it. It was Lu Er, a temporary worker in our troupe. He was a layabout who was always trying to take advantage of the girls. I can't believe he actually dared to lay a hand on me. You're lying, let go of me. I cried out in terror, struggling desperately. Your mother-in-law said you're just dying for men to look your way, told me not to hold back and to have a good time with you. As Lu Er spoke, his hands grew even bolder. In a moment of desperation, I sank my teeth into Lu Er's arm, putting every ounce of my strength into the bite. Ack! Lu Er cried out in pain and released his grip, seizing the chance. I shoved him away with all my might and stumbled toward the door, but before I could take more than a few steps, Lu Er grabbed me by the hair and flung me violently to the ground. You bitch, how dare you bite me, he roared, raising his hand and slapping me across the face. I'll show you who's boss today. My ears were ringing, and my vision went dark for a moment. Before I could even get up, another flurry of punches and kicks rained down on me. I curled up on the floor. desperately shielding my head. "Help, someone help," I screamed at the top of my lungs. The door to the training room was suddenly kicked open, and a blinding light flooded in. "Stop, what are you doing?" An angry voice rang out. "It's the theater's security guard." He was on his nightly patrol when he heard my cries for help and rushed over immediately. At the sight of the guard, Lou Air panicked and scrambled out of there in a blind rush. I struggled to get up, but felt completely weak. My vision went dark, and I passed out. I struggled to open my eyes, my vision a blurry haze. After blinking a few times, the white ceiling and the anxious face of the troop leader beside me came into focus. "Oh, my dear Ching Ching, you're finally awake." She grasped my hand tightly. "How do you feel? Are you still in pain anywhere?" I struggled to sit up, but the movement tugged at my wounds, making me gasp sharply in pain. "Oh, don't move. Just lie still. The doctor said you need to rest and recover." The team leader pressed down on my shoulder, his voice full of concern. "I've already called the police, that bastard. I won't let him get away with this." I instinctively touched my ear. It felt muffled, as if something were covering it, and a persistent buzzing filled my head. "Captain. Why does your voice sound so faint to me?" He paused, his gaze faltering slightly. "The doctor said the nerve in your left ear is damaged. Just get some rest and you'll be fine. Don't worry, you focus on resting. Don't trouble yourself with anything else." "Director, about the film audition tomorrow." "Ching Ching, I know how much you've been looking forward to this chance, but your injury, Ching Ching, you're still young. There will be other opportunities. Don't lose heart." I could no longer hold back my tears. They came flooding out. Just then, the door to the hospital room swung open. "I heard you got picked on. I came to see how you're doing." Chen Siming walked over to my bedside, carrying a mesh bag with a can of fruit inside. "I don't need your phony concern," I fumed. "If your mother hadn't been spreading rumors everywhere, would I have been bullied like this?" Chen Siming frowned with displeasure. "Swa Ching Ching, stop being unreasonable." "What does this have to do with my mother?" "Me, unreasonable? I was bullied and ended up in the hospital. I haven't even started holding people accountable, and you're already accusing me of making a scene." Stunned into silence by my retort, Chen Siming slowly spoke up. "Ching Ching, let's just let bygones be bygones. If you're willing, we can get remarried. I'll handle things with Hannah and the kids. And don't worry about what people might say. I'll make it right. No one will dare look down on you." I let out a cold laugh. "Chen Siming, you're dreaming. I'm telling you, I don't need it. It disgusts me." Seeing my resolute attitude, Siming's face turned cold. He said with a tone of contempt, "Swa Ching Ching, don't be so ungrateful. Take a good look at yourself. You've already been with another man." He didn't finish his sentence, but I knew exactly what he meant to say. All he's trying to say is that I've been touched by another man, that I'm tainted. I took a deep breath and said, slowly and deliberately, "Chen Siming, you listen to me, and you listen good. Even if I, Swa Ching Ching, never get married in this lifetime, I will never have anything to do with a scumbag like you again. Get out right now." Seeing that I was completely unmoved, Chen Siming couldn't be bothered to keep up the act any longer. "Swa Ching Ching, you'll regret this. Get out." I grabbed a pillow and hurled it at him. He couldn't dodge in time and took the hit square on. Furious and frustrated, Chen Siming could only storm out in a huff, slamming the door behind him. Before I could even do anything to Mrs. Chen, she was already arrested by the police. In those days, a hooliganism charge was no small matter. It could lead to a death sentence. After Lou Air was caught, he was scared out of his wits and, in a desperate attempt to drag someone down with him, he gave up Chen Siming's mother, who was also my former mother-in-law. It was the old lady from the Chen family. She's the one who told me to ruin Swa Ching Ching. She gave me 500 yuan and a movie ticket, promising another 500 once the job was done. In the end, Lou Air was sentenced to death, and my former mother-in-law got 10 years for incitement. Chen Siming was originally a university professor, but this whole affair caused quite a scandal for him. The school, under pressure, expelled him. How the tables have turned. The payback came so swiftly. When I was discharged from the hospital, I had lost a lot of weight, and my hearing was permanently impaired, fluctuating between good and bad. The regimental commander, worried I might be feeling down, kept trying to console me. "Ching Ching, don't lose heart. Medical science abroad is so advanced. We'll go overseas for treatment someday." I managed a weak smile, but my mind was a complete blank. I had no idea what tomorrow held in store for me. Yet, it seemed fate was giving me another chance. The film director said he'd auditioned a whole round of actors, but still hadn't found the leading lady he had in mind, so he decided to give me another shot. I swore to myself that I absolutely had to seize this opportunity. I walked into the audition room. I closed my eyes, recalling the scenes from the script, and soon found myself completely immersed in the character's world. My performance was natural and fluid, filled with genuine emotion, perfectly capturing the heroine's psychological journey from youthful innocence to a life weathered by experience. The director's eyes grew brighter and brighter, until finally, he slammed his hand on the table and exclaimed, "Excellent, you're the one." I opened my eyes, saw the director's excited expression, and felt my own heart surge with excitement. I did it. I finally landed the lead role. Filming is going smoothly. I'm really getting into the character. And the director said I was born to play this part. To avoid disrupting the shooting schedule, I moved right into the production crew's accommodations and was completely cut off from the outside world. By the time we wrapped, I had lost a noticeable amount of weight, but my spirits were higher than ever. "Ching ching. This show of yours is going to be a hit," the director said excitedly, patting me on the shoulder. "I guarantee it. You're going to be a household name." I just smiled and said nothing. Fame and fortune don't matter to me anymore. I just want to prove myself. After the wrap party, the director pulled me aside, his expression complicated. "Ching ching, there's something I never told you." "What is it?" The director sighed. "It's about your ex-husband. He attacked Chinhana with a knife. He's still being held at the police station." Seeing my look of shock, the squad leader filled me in on the whole story. It turned out that ever since he was expelled from school, the family's savings had all been used to compensate the Liu family. Now they were flat broke, without even a place to live, and could only rent a tiny, dilapidated house. Chinhana, having been pampered since childhood, how could she possibly endure such hardship? She started arguing with Chen Siming all day long, blaming him for deceiving her in the first place. She even said that if she had known he was so useless, she should never have divorced her ex-husband. Chen Siming was berated mercilessly, yet he didn't dare utter a single word in his own defense. In order to provide Chinhana with a better life, Chen Siming began asking around everywhere for a job, but because of his family's criminal record, no organization was willing to take him on. Left with no other choice, he could only go to the docks to haul heavy sacks, doing the dirty and exhausting work. Yet even so, the money he earned was nowhere near enough to cover Chinhana's extravagant spending. Chinhana wanted to go find her ex-husband, only he could provide the life she desired. So, behind Chen Siming's back, she secretly went to the hospital and had an abortion. When Chen Siming found out, he was utterly devastated. He confronted Chinhana, demanding to know why she had done it. Chinhana coldly told him she didn't want to live this wretched life anymore. In a fit of rage, he lunged at Chinhana with a fruit knife. Chen Siming is now detained at the police station and is likely to face charges. Chinhana was incredibly lucky. The knife missed her heart, but she was still seriously injured and is currently hospitalized. The team leader shook his head and sighed. "What a mess this is." I listened to the captain's words with a heavy heart, but I had no time to dwell on their fate, for my own life was moving on. I was going to meet my glorious future head-on. The captain patted my shoulder. "Ching ching, don't overthink it. This has nothing to do with you. Come on, let's go. We can't miss our flight." I gave a light laugh and turned towards the boarding gate. The movie was a huge success, and I became the hottest new star. I started traveling all over the country with the crew for the promotional tour. I'm spinning like a top every day. With no time to think about anything else, I was basking in the joy of success, and the pain of the past gradually faded. I started receiving frequent international calls, with invitations from various film festivals pouring in like snowflakes. I turned down most commercial film offers, only accepting a few thought-provoking art house projects. I was basking in the flowers and applause, reveling in the joy of success. I heard that Chen Siming was sentenced to 5 years. And Chinhana lost her ability to bear children in that accident. Naturally, her wealthy ex-husband wouldn't take her back, so in the end, she had no choice but to leave and start a new life alone, far from home. Whether they are doing well or not is no longer any concern of mine. Farewell, Chen Siming. Farewell to everything in the past. My life is about to turn a brand new page. Story 2. 4 months into my pregnancy, I secretly took an abortifacient. I told no one. And every day I would strap a pillow to my belly, pretending the child was still there. All because, in my past life, my widowed sister-in-law and I gave birth on the same day. She delivered a healthy baby boy, while in my swaddling clothes lay a piglet. My husband flew into a rage. He dashed the piglet to its death and declared to everyone that I had committed adultery with a pig demon. He then had me tied to a pyre and burned alive. In that final moment, as the flames licked at my skin, I saw my husband holding my sister-in-law, a blissful smile on his face. My sister-in-law just lost her husband, and if she then gave birth to a stillborn child, the whole village would brand her a jinx. I had no other choice but to switch her babies. My sister-in-law wept bitterly beside me. I'll pick a prime burial spot for your sister-in-law and bury her with the piglet, so she won't be lonely. I perished in the flames, consumed by hatred, given a second chance at life. I'm going to see just how well that family can manage without me. Let's see if they can keep living their carefree lives. I had just stepped out of the clinic when I ran straight into Chu Yunji and Lin Wenwu, who were shopping on the street, with a pillow tied around my waist and the faint scent of blood masked by the smell of herbs. Neither of them realized the child was already gone. Lin Wenwu, supporting Chu Yunji, scolded me. How could you go out when you're only 3 months along? Aren't you afraid of harming the pregnancy? Had I heard those words before, I would have thought Lin Wenwu was simply worried about me, but now, hearing them again, it's clear he's afraid that if I lose this child, there will be no one to exchange for the piglet in Chu Yunji's belly. I concealed the disgust in my eyes and spoke in a feigned, fragile tone. I wasn't feeling well, so I went to buy some medicine to stabilize the pregnancy. I didn't expect to run into sister-in-law and Wenwu. From a distance, I almost mistook them for a married couple. Lin Wenwu held Chu Yunji's hand protectively in front of her, while she clung tightly to his waist. Combined with their earlier intimate gestures, they looked every bit the married couple. Chu Yunji, flustered, let go of Lin Wenwu's hand. I'm feeling a bit unwell in my stomach. That's why I asked Wenwu to support me. Lin Wenwu, meanwhile, looked at me with disgust and snapped. My relationship with my sister-in-law is completely innocent. It's your own dirty mind that sees filth everywhere. Besides, with my elder brother away at the battlefield without a word for so long, it's only natural for me, as his younger brother, to take good care of his wife. Ching, you come from a merchant family and are strong and healthy. You simply can't understand the suffering a woman endures during pregnancy. Had I not known the truth, I might have actually been taken in by Lin Wenwu's words and knelt in shame before Chu Yunji's door to apologize. After being reborn, I finally realized how foolish I had been, to have actually believed the lies spun by Lin Wenwu and Chu Yunji. He preached about respecting his elder brother and caring for his sister-in-law, but in truth, he had already crawled into her bed. In my past life, I pitied Chu Yunji for being widowed so young. Not only did I feel no jealousy when my husband showed her favoritism, but I also sent a steady stream of precious medicinal herbs to her room. Even when we gave birth on the same day, I was so afraid Chu Yunji would suffer any hardship that I assigned several midwives to attend to her. Little did I expect that after I had suffered through a day and night of torment, Lin Wenwu would take one look at the child and try to drag me to the woodshed to burn me alive. He claimed I couldn't bear the loneliness and had committed adultery with a pig demon. Cuckolding him, my hands trembling, I took the child from Lin Wenwu. The infant had pinkish-white skin, a snout like a pig's, and a tiny tail. It was the very image of a piglet. I desperately tried to explain, but not a single soul believed me. In front of all the servants, he stripped me naked, tied me to a post, and burned me alive. My enormous dowry was then carved up and plundered by that whole crowd. My mother, refusing to believe their lies, came to uncover the truth, but their actions drove her to such fury that she suffered a stroke. The families nearby who had suffered from the pig demon's rampage hated me to the very marrow of their bones. They scattered my ashes in the latrine, cursing me to suffer for all eternity, never to find peace in the afterlife. And my own flesh and blood, my son, even after learning the truth, refused to acknowledge me. Instead, he admired Lin Wenwu's cunning and wanted nothing to do with a merchant's daughter like me as his mother. The mere thought of my miserable end in my past life, while they climbed to wealth and comfort over my corpse, sent a tidal wave of rage churning in my chest. I said with biting sarcasm, "Oh, really? Wenwu has never been that considerate with me, too. I accidentally fell into the water the other day." After Wenwu saw the child was safe, he never stepped foot in my room again. It's clear that in his heart, you, his sister-in-law, are far more important than I am. Lin Wenwu cleared his throat awkwardly. Yunji isn't well, and she's carrying my elder brother's only heir. Naturally, I should take extra care of her. As for you, if you're feeling unwell, you should go back and rest. I walked towards the carriage. Just as I lifted the curtain, I heard Lin Wenwu add, "Oh. And Yunji has been unwell lately. The physician prescribed bird's nest for her. Make sure you have someone send it over." That was the real point of it all. Bird's nest is a tribute reserved for the imperial family. Even as the wealthiest family in Yangzhou, we only possess a few ounces. How could someone like Chu Yunji be worthy of such a treasure? With a sweet smile, I agreed on the surface, but once inside the carriage, I ordered my maid to feed all the bird's nest to my wolfhound. Even a dog shows genuine loyalty to its master. Chu Yunji only deserves to drink boiled tree bark. Upon returning to the estate, I had my personal maid take the inventory list to account for what remained of my dowry. Lin Wenwu and I were matched by a matchmaker. When he came to visit, he was impeccably polite and treated me with the utmost respect. I also heard that the Lin family valued loyalty and affection highly. They even took devoted care of their widowed sister-in-law. I thought a family like that would surely not be harsh to a daughter-in-law. That's why, with a boatload of dowry, I married down to a scholar whose family had already fallen into decline. He said there was no one to look after his family, so I took out all my dowry and let the Lins spend it freely. When my mother-in-law fell gravely ill, I tended to her day and night for months, even cutting flesh from my own body to use as a medicinal ingredient. Even though he was not one to curry favor with the high and mighty, I still used my own gold and silver to grease the wheels at every level, smoothing his path to officialdom. I truly believed I had never failed the Lin family, yet I never imagined I would meet such a ruinous end, my reputation destroyed and my very bones ground to dust. After my mother-in-law found out I had reclaimed my dowry, she came to my room several times to make a scene. I managed to fob her off by claiming I had lent the money out. As for Lin Wenwu, I told him the pregnancy was unstable and that he should sleep in a separate room. Lin Wenwu's heart had long since flown to Chu Yunji's side. He wished he could be glued to her every single day, so of course he agreed, putting on a pitiful act. He said he was going to rest in the study. Before leaving, he didn't forget to tell the maid to take good care of my condition. Yet, the moment he stepped out of my room, he turned right around and headed straight for Chu Yunji's quarters. Lin Wenwu was convinced I loved him to the very marrow of my bones, that he had me completely under his thumb, and would therefore naturally take good care of the child. That's why he kept a close eye on my situation. In the days that followed, I pretended to know nothing, watching him lavish attention on Chu Yunji while I peacefully rested from my pregnancy. Official duties kept him busy. But whenever Lin Wenwu had a spare moment, he would inevitably take Chu Yunji out for excursions. If Chu Yunji so much as uttered the word like, Lin Wenwu would buy the item for her without a second thought, even if it was a jade bracelet worth a fortune. To the uninformed people on the street, Lin Wenwu appeared to be Chu Yunji's husband, and everyone praised his attentiveness. If I hadn't known from my past life that Chu Yunji's child was a piglet, I would have thought the child was Lin Wenwu's. Once, I happened to see the two of them being intimate on the street. Finding the sight distasteful, I turned to leave but was struck by a carriage and thrown 3 or 4 meters away. Lying on the ground, aching all over, I saw Lin Wenwu start to rush toward me in concern, only to be distracted by Chu Yunji's scream. A flying stone had grazed Chu Yunji's hand, leaving a bloody gash. Lin Wenwu, his face tight with worry, clasped it before sweeping Chu Yunji up into his arms. He then turned to the servants following them. Fetch the physicians. Now, 3. With that, he turned and left, leaving me lying on the ground for what felt like an age. It wasn't until dusk had fully settled that I managed to struggle to my feet and make my way home. The moment I arrived home, I saw Lin Wenwu personally feeding medicine to Chu Yunji, who was lying in bed. Only after seeing me and confirming the child was still safe did he let out a sigh of relief. He then scolded me for going out and causing Chu Yunji to get hurt because of me. A familiar official's wife discreetly warned me during her visit that I must be careful. I thanked her for her kindness with a smile, putting on a show of boundless affection and insisting that there was absolutely nothing improper between them, that Lin Wenwu was merely being kind. Even when the lengthy bill was delivered to the Lin household, it was accepted without question. With a promise to settle everything after the childbirth, the official's wife was livid at the staggering sum. As she left, she muttered under her breath that her cousin was a minor official stationed at the frontier, and she would definitely have him summon the Lin family's eldest son back to teach those two a lesson. Of course, I was aware of their affair. In fact, I secretly hoped Lin Wenwu would pour all his passion and energy into Chu Yunji. If Chu Yunji hadn't been there to divert his attention, how could the child in my belly have gone undetected for so long? If he had only laid a hand on my stomach once, or accompanied me to see a physician, he would have discovered the child was long gone. This whole nearing my due date appearance of mine is nothing but a sham, crafted with a couple of pillows. Chu Yunji has been experiencing frequent contractions lately, which has her terribly anxious. She sent people over to check on my movements again and again. Lin Wenwu is also on edge, practically spending every night in Chu Yunji's room. Seeing that the time was about right, I finished my makeup in the mirror, picked up the tonic, and with a slight smile curling my lips, said to the maid behind me, "Let's go. We should go see how sister-in-law is doing. Make sure to invite more of our acquaintances. With this bowl of tonic, our family might just welcome a new addition soon." Chu Yunji had sent all her maids away for her secret rendezvous with Lin Wenwu, which worked perfectly to my advantage. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, only to freeze in my tracks after a single glance. The bowl of tonic slipped from my hand and crashed to the floor with a loud clatter. The ladies who had followed me rushed in to help me up. But they too froze the moment they saw the two figures on the bed. Chu Yunji, clad only in a thin undergarment, lay in Lin Wenwu's embrace, while Lin's hand still kneaded at Chu's chest. Seeing someone approach, Lin Wenwu scrambled off the bed in a panic, grabbing a quilt to cover Chu Yunji completely. I was so shocked that I collapsed to the floor, and the maids hastily helped me to my feet. Mrs. Li looked at my tear-streaked face, then at Chu Yunji behind Lin Wenwu, Lin family's second son. "How could you do such a thing with your own sister-in-law? You've misunderstood. I haven't been feeling well lately, so I asked Wenwu to give me a massage." Chu Yunji hurriedly explained. "Ching. Didn't Wenwu ask me to come here? Hurry up and explain." I forced down the bitterness in my heart. It was my instruction to Wenwu. With no one to look after my sister-in-law, I had Wenwu stay in her room every day. The words were like a stone thrown into water, sending ripples through the crowd. People covered their mouths, casting scornful looks at Lin Wenwu and Chu Yunji. "I reckon this child is the second son of the Lin families. Why else would she abandon her own flesh and blood to go care for someone else?" Chu Yunji's eyes welled up with tears, on the verge of crying, while Lin Wenwu pointed at me and shouted, "Lu Qingqing, you pretended to be virtuous to get me to come to Yunji's side, and then deliberately led others here. What is your real intention? For Yunji is already pitiful enough. You know full well she's about to give birth, yet you still tried to ruin her reputation. Are you trying to get two people killed?" Realizing what was happening, Chu Yunji scrambled off the bed and, with a desperate struggle, tried to hurl herself against the wall. "Qingqing, I know you hate me. I'll take the child and end it all right now, so I'll never be a bother to you again. I'll prove my innocence with my death." There was nothing improper between me and Wenwu. Once again, a flurry of people rushed forward in a hurry to restrain Chu Yunji. Seeing Chu Yunji's intense reaction and Lin Wenwu's righteous demeanor, the crowd began to waver. Could it really be Lu Qingqing's scheme? Those from merchant families are always so cunning. This is driving someone to their death. How could Lu Qingqing be so vicious? As the accusations rained down on me, Chu Yunji suddenly clutched her stomach, groaning in pain. Her water had broken. Lin Wenwu lifted Chu Yunji and laid her sideways on the bed. I called for the midwife to help, but Lin Wenwu stared at my belly and slapped me across the face. My stomach hit the corner of the table. A cold sweat broke out from the pain as I clutched my belly tightly with both hands. Lin Wenwu swiftly wrote a letter of divorce and flung it in my face. "What madness possessed me to bring a vicious woman like you into this house? If anything happens to Yunji or the child today, you can consider yourself banished from this family for good." My mother-in-law had rushed in at some point and began beating and kicking me, every blow landing squarely on my stomach. My eldest son finally managed to have a child. If anything happens to it, this old woman has nothing left to live for. By the time everyone managed to pull her off me, the water pouch I had tied to myself had ruptured. I lay on the ground, feigning a state of near death. A flicker of joy flashed in Lin Wenwu's eyes as he helped me to the side chamber. He had been holding back for the baby's sake, but now, with Chu Yunji's labor imminent, he had no choice but to induce mine. If the baby truly couldn't be delivered, they would have to cut me open to save the child. I moaned incessantly from the pain and grasped Lin Wenwu's hand. "Wenwu, go and fetch the midwife for me, quickly." Lin Wenwu hastily pointed out a midwife and said to me in a rush, "Qingqing, Yunji is giving birth for the first time. I must go and keep an eye on her. You listen to the midwife for now, and no matter what, you must deliver this child." I silently cursed at his retreating back. The room was now empty except for the two of us. I tossed 10 taels of silver her way, and she scurried off, overjoyed. Before leaving, she even made sure to tell me that Lin Wenwu was planning to kill the mother to take the child. I had still underestimated just how ruthless Lin Wenwu could be. Gritting my teeth, I stuffed a pillow into the swaddling clothes, then collapsed onto the bed, feigning exhaustion, and waited for the show to begin. Roughly half an hour later, Lin Wenwu crept up to my bedside and, with swift movements, swapped the babies. He had just placed the piglet on the bed when he saw me stir and slowly opened my eyes. "Wenwu, what are you doing here?" Lin Wenwu froze for a moment, then forced a smile onto his face. "Yunji has given birth. I came to see our child." The child seemed to sense something was wrong and let out a whimper like a wild animal's cub. Lin Wenwu lifted the swaddling cloth, and with just one glance, his face was contorted with rage. What in the world is this, Lu Qingqing? You actually consorted with a pig demon and gave birth to a piglet. Chapter 2, 5. The violent quarrel drew a crowd. My mother-in-law pushed through the crowd, took one look at the child's pig's tail and pale skin, and began pointing her finger in my face, shouting abuse. Well, Lu Qingqing, how dare you commit such a heinous act? My son passed the imperial examination at just 25. He's prime minister material, fit to marry even a princess. I only agreed to let you into our family because your background seemed decent, and yet you consorted with a pig demon and gave birth to this half-human, half-pig abomination. How can the Lin family ever show our face in public again? How can I face our ancestors? My mother-in-law threw a fit. One moment threatening to dash her own brains out, the next vowing to have me burned alive. The ladies and young misses rushed to restrain her, then turned to heap accusations upon me. Chu Yunji, who had just given birth, also came out holding her child. The plan was proceeding so smoothly that they let their guard down completely, failing to notice anything amiss with the baby, as her gaze swept over the child on the ground. A flicker of malice passed through her eyes. Qingqing, how could you possibly give birth to a pig demon? There must be some misunderstanding here, even though you're always hanging around the pigsty for no reason and even wrote letters to the pigs. It's common knowledge that pig demons eat people. Surely you wouldn't be in cahoots with one to harm others. That statement sent the crowd into an uproar. In that crowd, many had families who had been attacked by the pig demon, or even lost loved ones to it. Upon hearing this, they all started cursing and shouting at me. So that's why the boar demon keeps targeting our village. His mistress has been hiding here all along. She's probably been feeding him information this whole time. You murderous accomplice. Well, no wonder the Lin family's efforts to hunt the boar demon have failed for an entire year. It's because of a traitor like you in their midst. Someone had rummaged through the drawer and read the letters. One by one, furious, they spat in my direction. Disgusting. To think you'd flirt with a monster like that. They ought to strip you naked and sell you to a brothel. You turned your back on a fine scholar like Lin, only to go and mess around with a pig demon. Have you no heart, no conscience? A woman like that deserves to be burned alive. To do something so wicked and heartless. Kill her, and see if she dares harm anyone ever again. Letters were flung in my face, one after another, cutting my cheeks. They grabbed ornaments from the table and hurled them at me. Some, in their fury, even produced stones from somewhere and struck me on the head. Seeing my sorry state, bloodied and battered, Chu Yunji hid behind Lin Wenwu, snickering. Lin Wenwu, for his part, yanked me right off the bed with an air of righteous indignation. Qingqing, it's not that I have no mercy for you, but a life must be paid for with a life. Since you aided the pig demon in harming others, you must be burned alive to atone for your crimes. Hearing Lin Wenwu's words, far from panicking, I actually laughed. What proof do you have that I'm in cahoots with that pig demon? Lin Wenwu pointed at the child on the ground. The child you gave birth to is the proof. I stared fixedly at Lin Wenwu, sending a chill down his spine. Everything was ready. So why did she have this nagging feeling that something was wrong? Why is that child so quiet? Lin Wenwu turned his stiff neck to look at the swaddled baby in Chu Yunji's arms. Before he could move, he heard me speak. The child has already been aborted. How could it possibly be born again? 6. As if struck by lightning, Lin Wenwu froze on the spot. Chu Yunji also sensed something was wrong and moved to lift the swaddling cloth. Lin Wenwu tried to stop her, but it was too late. The swaddling clothes had already been opened. Inside, there was no baby, only a pillow lay there. How can there be no child in here? The mother-in-law pointed at the bundle, stammering as she asked, You all tried to use a child to trap me, but I found out. I went to the clinic and ended the pregnancy months ago. Lin Wenwu, I should actually thank you, if you hadn't been so completely obsessed with Chu Yunji, showing me not a shred of concern. I could never have pulled the wool over your eyes so easily. It suddenly dawned on Lin Wenwu, the last time he saw me, no wonder my complexion had been so unnaturally pale. It was because of the child. He staggered backward a few steps, muttering under his breath, Impossible. So this child is. Someone pointed at the piglet, which still had a faint breath of life. Naturally, it's Chu Yunji's. She was having an affair with the pig demon. My wonderful husband, to save his mistress, came up with the idea of swapping my child for Chu Yunji's. Seeing that I had revealed everything, Chu Yunji went berserk, hurling a pillow and pointing at the child on the floor as she cried out, This child isn't mine. You're the one who framed me and hid my real child. You're the one who gave birth to the pig demon, and my mother-in-law can testify to that. Chu Yunji dragged the old woman over, clinging to this lifeline. The mother-in-law nodded along with everything Chu Yunji said. This daughter-in-law of mine has been improper from the very start, nothing like Yunji. She's the one stirring up trouble and spinning lies. You've all been deceived by her. With both sides sticking to their own stories, the spectators were left utterly confused, unable to tell who was telling the truth. Someone said through gritted teeth, "Since it was your Lin family's daughter-in-law who committed this sin, one of you must pay with your life." My heart lurched in shock. I was about to defend myself when Lin Wenwu and my mother-in-law shoved me into the crowd. "It's her, she's the one, kill her, and then leave us alone." My hand pressed against my lower garment, ready to show them I bore no signs of childbirth, when a man's voice rang out, "It's not her." The eldest son of the Lin family pushed aside the curtain. He was unshaven and looked thoroughly travel-worn. "Chu Yunji and I have never been intimate. How could she possibly have a child?" The words struck the crowd like a thunderbolt, and all eyes turned to scrutinize Chu Yunji. Chu Yunji stumbled backward, her mouth moving in a continuous, frantic whisper. "That's not true. I've been stationed at the border for 3 or 4 years now, and I've never once returned home. Every soldier stationed here can vouch for that." Lin Wenwu and the others had always told people that the eldest son of the Lin family had secretly returned home a few times at night, which was how he had left behind an heir. Now, with the man himself publicly contradicting their story, their faces fell with palpable embarrassment. When Chu Yunji went into labor, many midwives were present and assisting. Although they didn't directly handle the child, the commotion and sounds of childbirth were unmistakable. It was a genuine birth. Right at that moment, the physician arrived, just as promised. "I can testify that this young woman did indeed come here for an abortion a few months ago, and as for the lady's supposed childbirth, just look around. Does this room show any sign of a delivery having taken place?" 7. The room was unnervingly clean, not a drop of blood in sight, not even the faintest metallic scent of it in the air. I picked up the letter from the floor. Lin Wenwu and Chu Yunji thought they were clever, slipping these letters onto me when I wasn't looking. Little did they know I never took the bait. The moment they left, I put them right back in the drawer. This is Chu Yunji's courtyard, and these letters are naturally Chu Yunji's as well. If you're going to hate someone, make sure you're hating the right person. With my little nudge, the crowd finally realized how terribly mistaken they had been. Pairs of hate-filled eyes fixed on Lin Wenwu and Chu Yunji, burning with the desire to tear the two of them apart on the spot. Nonsense. "How dare you frame Yunji?" Lin Wenwu quickly came up to me, grabbed my sleeve, and said in a hushed voice, "I know you resent how well I treat Yunji. If you take the fall for her this time, I promise my heart will belong to you alone from now on." He seemed utterly heartbroken. "I will never see Yunji again." Oh, how touching, sarcastic tone. Listening to Lin Wenwu's words, I could only laugh. That line might have held some appeal for the me from my past life, but in this life, I wish Lin Wenwu would stay as far away from me as possible. I raised my voice. "Wenwu, if you knew that Chu Yunji was colluding with the pig demon and getting people killed, you should have told them sooner. How could you just stand by and watch them die?" Lin Wenwu wasn't expecting me to say that. In a panic, he immediately tried to cover my mouth, but I nimbly dodged him. The crowd closed in on Lin Wenwu step by step. He wanted to run, but there was no escape. He and Chu Yunji were surrounded and beaten together. "Ching ching, ching ching, please save me, Lu Ching ching. I hope you die a horrible death." Lin Wenwu's pleas turned to curses, his voice growing hoarse. A wave of bitterness washed over me. I did love Lin Wenwu once. The moment I glimpsed him through the curtain from afar, I fell for him at first sight. Otherwise, I would never have married him with boatloads of dowry, even turning down a proposal from a nobleman. I strived to be a good wife for him, cooking and weaving without pause, believing he would come to love me one day, but it turned out Lin Wenwu's heart could never be warmed. To him, I was merely a convenient tool, coaxed with a few sweet words when needed, then shelved and forgotten when not. My mother-in-law was weeping uncontrollably, kneeling on the ground and begging me. This was all that little tramp Chu Yunji's idea. "It has nothing to do with my son. He's still young. He has a bright future ahead of him and could become a high official. Please, I beg you, call off your people." If this were someone easily swayed by propriety, seeing an elder beg like this would have left them utterly flustered. But I'm someone who's already died once. No amount of face or social standing is more important to me than my own peace of mind. I raised my hand and slapped him right then and there. "So I only hit him and not you, huh? Did that feel good? You were having a grand old time cursing me out just a moment ago." After a few more slaps, the old woman's face was swollen like a pig's head. I didn't stop until my arm was sore from hitting her. The mother-in-law lay on the ground, clutching her cheek and slurring her words. You dare hit me. I'll have my son divorce you. I followed her example and spat in the mother-in-law's direction. Pa, it's not your son who's divorcing me. It's me who's divorcing your son. It was only after I'd finished that I remembered the Lin family's eldest son was there too. I'd expected him to stop me, but he just stared at the old lady without saying a word. His inaction suited me just fine. I picked up a comb from the dressing table, tidied my hair, and turned to leave. The Lin household was in utter chaos. Seizing the moment while the old lady and others were preoccupied with Lin Wenwu and his lot, I swiftly directed the maids to pack up and take everything from the estate. If it was mine, I wouldn't leave them so much as a teacup. Looking at the completely empty Lin residence, I felt utterly satisfied. I had contacted my parents days ago. I was just waiting for them to arrive so I could take my dowry and leave this wretched place for good. 8. By the time my mother-in-law came to her senses, the house was stripped bare, with nothing left but the pillars holding up the roof beams. Furious, she threw herself on the floor, wailing and screaming, calling me an ill-bred woman. The onlookers had no patience for her antics. One of them spat right in her face. Pa, you schemed to send that poor girl to her death in your place. Now that you've been found out, you have the nerve to make a scene. That Lu girl is still too soft-hearted. If it were me, I wouldn't be satisfied until I'd skinned the whole lot of them. The old woman, already furious, was now so enraged that her vision went black and she fainted on the spot. The magistrate's wife was delighted to hear about my divorce and came to the inn to see me. She launched into a vivid account of the news concerning Lin Wenwu and Chu Yunji. It's true that Chu Yunji was originally the wife of the eldest Lin's son. However, after he left, the mother-in-law conceived the idea of having Chu Yunji marry into both branches of the family. Her reasoning was simple. Any children born to either the eldest or second Lin's son would still be of the Lin bloodline, even if the eldest son returned later. Seeing the children with him, he wouldn't have grounds to object. Chu Yunji and Lin Wenwu took a liking to each other during their time together. Despite the eldest son of the Lin family sending money home every year, they still insisted he was missing. Their hearts were set on being together. But then, I came along. Seeing that I had value to him, Lin Wenwu put Chu Yunji on the back burner and focused solely on preparing to marry me. Chu Yunji, unable to bear the loneliness of her empty chambers, spent her nights carousing outside, consorting with dissolute men. On one occasion, she met a young man. Finding him handsome and dashing, and his physique beyond reproach, he provided her with immense satisfaction. She swiftly fell head over heels in love with him. The man often inquired about slaying the pig demon, and Chu Yunji held nothing back, telling him everything she knew. Whenever the Lin family organized a hunt for the creature, the man would hide in Chu Yunji's bedchamber, where they would indulge in passionate lovemaking. Although Chu Yunji felt something was amiss, physical pleasure took precedence, so she didn't dwell on it. It wasn't until the pig demon, drunk one night, revealed its true form that Chu Yunji realized the grave mistake she had made. She hastily drove the creature away. By then, she was already carrying the pig demon's child. After hearing her tearful account, Lin Wenwu became convinced that marrying me was the cause of Chu Yunji's misfortune. He then conceived the idea of having me take the blame in her stead. At this point, the official's wife wore a look of disdain. I really don't know what's wrong with his head. While everyone was cursing Chu Yunji, he actually pleaded for leniency on his behalf. He said she was also deceived, and wanted you to go door to door kowtowing for Chu Yunji, begging them to let him off. I continued eating the dried fruit without changing my expression. Did they agree? No, Chu Yunji committed a grave crime, so naturally he could not be spared. He has already been burned at the stake. As for Lin Wenwu, he was given 10 strokes of the cane and thrown back to the Lin family. Although Lin Wenwu assisted Chu Yunji considerably, he was not the one who had illicit relations with the pig demon, nor was it his intention to let the demon escape. Furthermore, he did hold the title of a Shotsai, a scholar who passed the county-level imperial exam, so making him pay with his life would have incurred a significant cost. Lin Wenwu's future was anything but rosy. For starters, his creditors weren't about to let him off the hook. Half a month later, my parents finally arrived. My mother wore a blue dress. Though advanced in years, she was neat and elegant, her every gesture exuding the refined air of a lady of means. Remembering how, in my past life, this very mother had been driven to a stroke by my actions, then cast into the street and reviled by all, I could hold back no longer and threw myself into her arms. Mom, what's wrong? Ching ching, Mom's here now. 9. Mom held me tight, and Dad wiped away tears beside us. It was our fault, your father and I, we were fooled by Lin Wenwu's respectable appearance and let him deceive us, leading our precious daughter to this state. Come, we're going home, we'll never let you suffer like this again. My parents were pulling me away, ready to leave, before we could even board the boat. A figure lunged from the shadows and grabbed my clothes with a death grip. Lin Wenwu was disheveled and filthy, reeking of a stench that suggested he hadn't bathed in days. He stared at me with bloodshot eyes. Ching ching, ching ching. I know I was wrong. Please, just come back. It was all Chu Yunji who seduced me. That's why I made that mistake. The truth is, I've always loved you. Give me a chance to make it up to you. I took a step back in disgust. You don't love me, you love my money. If your family were still as wealthy as when I was with you, you'd never come begging like this. I studied Lin Wenwu carefully. It seemed these debt collectors hadn't let me down. My secret payment of several dozen taels of silver to them was money well spent. Lin Wenwu was stunned for a moment, then suddenly roared in fury. You knew all along, didn't you? You're the one who schemed to plunge my family into debt. That day, he had just been beaten and sent home. Before he could even go to rescue Chu Yunji, he was intercepted by the debt collectors. They claimed the Lin family owed them a full 30,000 taels of silver. It was only then that Lin Wenwu realized I had never settled the bills they'd sent. I had simply ordered them to be shelved. When I was around, they weren't in a hurry, but now that the wealthy patrons were gone, they all crowded at the Lin family's gate, terrified that if they came too late, they'd get nothing. Lin Wenwu had intended to have his mother produce the silver to placate them. But instead he heard her wailing that I had taken every last bit of silver, leaving the household completely penniless. Only at this moment did Lin Wenwu finally see the light. Everything the Lin family had was given by me. Without me, the Lin family would instantly be reduced to a destitute household surviving on laundry work. So Lin Wenwu waited a full 3 days outside the inn, just to catch me coming out and force me to back down. A wave of immense satisfaction washed over me. What do you mean scheming, Lin Wenwu? All of these are things you bought for your dear sister-in-law. Didn't you say before that no price was too high, that you'd give Chu Yunji anything she wanted? Well, you can take your time giving it to her yourself. With that, I turned to leave, completely unaware of the murderous glint in Lin Wenwu's eyes as he drew a dagger behind me. If you won't save me, then you're coming with me to the grave. Lin Wenwu, his face twisted with rage, lunged at me. My mother's face went deathly pale with fright. Ching ching. I tightened my grip on the long sword, ready to strike, when suddenly someone grabbed me and flung me aside. The eldest son of the Lin family kicked Lin Wenwu away, snatched the dagger from his hand, and shouted to the outside, "They're in here." In an instant, a mob of debt collectors surrounded Lin Wenwu, grabbing him and threatening to break his legs. Lin Wenwu wailed and sobbed. I am a scholar, you cannot strike me. Not anymore, you're not, elder brother Lin added. You have committed adultery with your sister-in-law and framed your lawful wife. Your scholarly rank has been stripped. You are now nothing but a commoner. I am your brother, and you dare to harm me. Had I known this, I should have had mother kill you back then, Lin Wenwu shouted. 10. From his words, I learned that the eldest son of the Lin family was truly pitiable. He and Lin Wenwu were originally cousins, after his parents died. His grandmother adopted him solely to take possession of his house, forcing him to call her mother. Unfortunately, she treated him poorly. Though he was the rightful master of the house, he lived like a servant. So, as soon as he reached the age for military service, he left for the frontier. That is likely the reason he harbors no affection for the Lin family. Lin Wenwu tried to curse again, but his leg was broken, and he was hauled off to who knows where. I thanked the eldest son of the Lin family for saving me and offered him the silver, but he shook his head. Instead, he pulled out a thick stack of banknotes from his sleeve. It is the Lin family who has wronged you. Consider this my compensation. The banknotes were scattered, some already yellowed with age. A border soldier's pay wasn't much, so eldest son Lin must have given me all his silver. While I bore a grudge against the Lin family, I felt nothing particular towards this eldest son Lin, who had never harmed me from start to finish. What's more, his fate was as wretched as my own. He returned home 3 years after my death, but Lin Wenwu and Chu Yunji, fearing he would expose their illicit affair, poisoned him to death. I shook my head and told him I had plenty of silver. Eldest son Lin didn't stand on ceremony any longer. He pressed a token into my hand and told me to find him if I needed anything. 10 years later, I saw Lin Wenwu again at the frontier. His tongue had been cut out, his limbs severed, and he was kept in a box as a sideshow freak. As I passed by holding my child, Lin Wenwu abruptly stopped his act. He stared fixedly at us, howling soundlessly, though I couldn't hear a sound. I knew he was cursing us. The troop leader, misunderstanding my gaze, thought I was waiting for the show. He gave the man a few sharp lashes with his whip to make him continue. I tossed a few pieces of broken silver. The troop leader accepted them with a beaming smile. Some folks are just born lazy. They won't lift a finger unless you beat 'em. Sir, this man here used to be a scholar. He owed money and got dumped on me to settle the debt. He can even swallow a sword. I'll have him perform if you'd like to see it. I declined the troop leader's offer and walked straight ahead. All that business with the Lin family is in the past. My life is far more fulfilling now. That's all for the first story. Don't go away, the next one is even more incredible. I raised my daughter to become the world's premier violinist, only to hear her call another woman Mom. Mom, that woman forces me to practice the violin every single day. I can't stand her anymore. I was utterly shocked, but I forced myself to stay calm and went for a DNA test. The results revealed that my daughter was not biologically mine. My sister-in-law was her birth mother. Meanwhile, my own biological daughter, whom I carried for 10 months, was switched by my mother-in-law and given to my sister-in-law. She was mistreated and died before the age of 10. My daughter conspired with my sister-in-law and her family. After I uncovered the truth, they pushed me from a high-rise to my death and seized all my assets. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day I gave birth, and I swapped the child my mother-in-law had switched right back. In that son-obsessed household of my brother and sister-in-law, I was going to see if that ungrateful wretch could still become famous young and live a life of glory. Oh dear, she's going into labor. She's going into labor. Ancestors of the Chi family, please bless us. Let both daughters-in-law give birth to big, fat baby boys. The agony of childbirth replaced the horrific pain of falling from a great height and being shattered to pieces. The howling wind in my ears became the sound of frantic, urgent voices. Hearing my mother-in-law's booming voice once more, I was finally convinced I had been reborn back to the day I gave birth. Mom, before entering the delivery room, with tears in my eyes and through the pain, I called out to my own mother who was there to support me. Go quietly and buy a highlighter and a UV light. Make a mark on the baby, don't tell a soul, and don't let anyone else, don't let anyone touch the child. Mom was a bit confused, but she nodded anyway, and even remembered to comfort me. Don't worry, I'll keep a close eye on the child. No one's going to snatch them. I just shook my head, my lips pale. In my past life, my mother-in-law, and my husband took turns standing guard, keeping a vigilant watch. They could fend off outsiders trying to steal the child. But they couldn't stop my biased mother-in-law. She swapped out my own child. My mother-in-law had always favored her second son. This time, after her hopes for a grandson were dashed, she went so far as to directly switch the babies from our two families. It was all because our family was well off. By having me raise her second son's daughter, she could ensure the girl had the best possible life, and after we're gone, she could inherit everything we have. Only to hand it all over to my second brother's family. I just never expected to uncover the truth. For money, she betrayed over 20 years of my care and upbringing, conspiring with my brother and his wife to push me from the top of a high-rise. Meanwhile, my own biological daughter, unwanted and mistreated by that same brother and his wife, endured 10 harsh years of suffering before tragically passing away, this time, as I rested my hand on my still unborn child. My eyes darkened with resolve. I would never let the tragedy of my past life happen again. The operating room lights blurred before my eyes. In a haze of fading consciousness, I heard the newborn's first cry, and then, utterly spent, I could fight the exhaustion no longer and let my eyes close. I woke up to find it was already evening, with my mother standing beside me, her face etched with worry and frustration. Yingxian, your mother-in-law actually swapped the babies when I wasn't looking. She gave yours to your second brother's wife. I held back and didn't alert her, but I couldn't find the right moment to switch them back. She leaned in close, her voice a low, furious whisper at my ear. Thank goodness I listened to you and marked them early on, or I'd never be able to tell the two infants apart. What kind of mother-in-law does something like that? My heart skipped a beat before I could utter a word. My mother-in-law stormed into the hospital room with a face like thunder. Both her daughters-in-law had given birth to girls, shattering her dream of having a grandson. Didn't you say you were going to make chicken soup? Dear, I can stay here with her. You should go ahead. With my own mother still present, she put on a show of being considerate and tactfully sent her away. After the others had left, she turned back to me and said, since you're awake now, Yingxian, I'm going to take a nap. You keep an eye on the baby. And keep an eye on the second son's wife while you're at it, and don't forget to change the diaper." Without even waiting for a reply, my mother-in-law gave her instructions and hurried off, clearly afraid of being asked to do anything else. This was the perfect opportunity for me. The ward was silent, it was dark outside, and with the lights off, the faint glow from the hallway barely illuminated the layout of the room. Watching my younger siblings and the baby sound asleep in the next bed, I crept over, carefully picked up the infant, and swiftly swapped the children back. Then, on the tiny toenail of her right big toe, I found the faintly glowing mark. I held my precious child, lost and found again, as hot tears of overwhelming emotion streamed down my face. I just held the child like that until my husband, Qixing, arrived in the middle of the night to take over, in my past life. When I told my husband the truth, he was filled with fury but utterly powerless to change anything. In the end, he somehow managed to come to terms with the devastating news of our children's death. He even tried to console me, saying, "Darling, what's gone is gone. We raised that girl as our own, even if she was originally our brother's daughter. She still called you Mom, didn't she, after I passed?" He took that ungrateful wretch's advice and handed over our entire life savings to our second son's family. From courtship to marriage, Qixing and I have weathered life storms together for decades. He's a good man in every way, successful in his career, devoted to his family, and a loving husband. The only thing is, he's too soft-hearted and blindly filial to a fault. That's why, for now, I have no intention of telling him about the baby swap. When Qixing rushed over, my mother-in-law was just heading back to our second son's house, carrying a large bag of baby clothes. "Mom," he stopped his mother-in-law, glancing at his sleeping younger sister and the child beside her, "if you take all the clothes, what will the baby wear?" The mother-in-law let out a disdainful snort. "A little girl doesn't need new clothes. These are for my precious grandson. She shouldn't wear his good fortune away from him." My mother-in-law's voice was soft, yet in the deep silence of the night, it still reached my ears with perfect clarity. Yes, in my past life, my own flesh and blood, the daughter who lived with my brother and his wife, never once wore a new piece of clothing. Malnourished, gaunt, and frail, my daughter stood half a head shorter than other children her age. That's when my mother-in-law suggested giving her our family's hand-me-downs to wear. I was too embarrassed to even show her the clothes that were too worn out. I picked out a few that were just barely presentable to give her, never realizing those were the child's only few pieces of clothing she had for the entire year. Summer was manageable. My mother-in-law could patch together a few scraps of cloth, and that would count as a change of clothes. But when winter came, my daughter could only wear those thin, old garments. She would stomp her feet against the cold, her hands and face turning a purplish blue from the chill. In contrast, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were both dressed in thick, stylish clothes. On occasional visits back home, I couldn't bear to see it anymore and bought scarves and new clothes for the whole family. Only my daughter's winter coat was returned by my sister-in-law. She asked me to buy a black one, saying the child was mischievous and the clothes would get dirty easily. I didn't suspect anything and exchanged it for a black one. It was only during the new year that I saw that coat and scarf, both worn by my younger brother, so it turned out the boy wouldn't wear a pink winter coat. My daughter was still wearing that same thin, faded old coat, its sleeves too short for her wrists. The baby in my arms smacked her lips in her sleep, her tiny mouth wet with the warm tears I had just shed. I gently wiped the water from the corner of her mouth, my arms tightening around her almost instinctively. My mother-in-law pointed at a bulging plastic bag on the floor. "Those are Gonzi's old clothes from when he was little. She can wear those." Qixing was shocked. "Mom, those are from how many years ago? Are they even clean? What do you know? It's better for raising a child this way." At the mention of being easy to raise, Qixing seemed to remember something and asked weakly, "What about the name? Don't tell me you gave her a name for easy raising too." The mother-in-law's face lit up with a proud smile. "Her formal name is Jowdy, and her nickname can just be Go Dan." Qixing's lips moved soundlessly, his face full of disbelief. Would Gongzi and his wife ever agree to that? "What do you mean you don't agree? What's wrong with this name?" Mother-in-law retorted, unconvinced. "It's a perfectly good name." A self-deprecating smile touched my lips. That ungrateful wretch from my past life, who once basked in my affection, often bullied my daughter because of this name. This time around, let her be the one saddled with it. She disliked my guidance, she disliked the new clothes I bought her, and she disliked the violin lessons I enrolled her in. She disliked everything I gave her. Her heart was set only on her younger brother's family. In this life, I'm going to see if, in the home of the mother she loves so dearly, She can achieve academic success and fame at a young age like she did in her past life. The mother-in-law was not idle at all, tending to her younger brother's family with all her heart. Those old clothes were soon worn by Jyoti. Then, she picked up the unknown brand of formula on the cabinet, casually scooped 2 spoonfuls, mixed it with hot water, and fed it to the crying, hungry baby. This maneuver left Qi Xing and the family member accompanying the patient in the next bed utterly horrified. After feeding her, my mother-in-law came over again, wanting to see my baby. Qi Xing stood up and stopped her. Mom, we've hired a postpartum nanny. She can handle things like feeding. You should really just take it easy and rest. What's the point of hiring a maternity nurse? It's a complete waste of money. Otherwise, you can't take care of both of them all by yourself, can you? After much persuasion, Qi Xing finally managed to get his mother-in-law to leave. My gaze fell back on Jyoti. She was crying inconsolably because the milk she had just drunk was too hot. Perhaps I overestimated her. She might not even live to adulthood. I had thought my daughter's death in my previous life was an accident, but now it seems there were signs all along. Sure enough, before long, Jyoti developed a fever. A widespread rash broke out all over the body. It was unclear whether it was an allergic reaction to the old clothes or the formula milk. The absurd part was, when Jyoti was crying and fussing on Zhang Yangyang's bed, neither she nor her mother-in-law took it seriously. Instead, annoyed by the noise, they just kept rocking her, hoping to lull her to sleep. It was the nurse on rounds who first noticed something was wrong. By the time the fever was detected, Jyoti's breathing was faint as a thread and her voice was a mere whisper. Her little face was flushed bright red, and large patches of redness spread across her body. Zhang Yangyang paid no attention to it whatsoever. She actually thought that was my daughter. She even expressed a bag of breast milk for me, saying she was worried my daughter wouldn't eat well. I took the small bag, and the moment she turned her back, I threw it in the trash without a second thought. In my past life, it was Zhang Yangyang who came up with the plan to silence me for good. I truly believe I've treated her well, fulfilled all my duties as the eldest sister-in-law, and helped their family out on numerous occasions. Yet in the end, I was the one left utterly shattered. For a fever, you just need to bundle up and sweat it out. Isn't that how all us kids got through it back in our day? My mother-in-law shouted at the top of her lungs, blocking the nurse who was trying to call for a doctor, while grabbing another old piece of clothing to smother over Jyoti's head. On the door, even the family from the next room couldn't stand to watch anymore. Everyone in the ward was blaming the grandmother, except for Zhang Yangyang, who remained indifferent. The grandmother, feeling deeply embarrassed and under the nurse's stern insistence, finally rushed the child into the ICU in a fluster. She was admitted to the ICU just 2 days after being born. Looking at Jyoti's patient wristband, my eyes welled up with tears, my heart filled with boundless anguish. That was the daughter I cherished for most of my life in my past existence. Perhaps today, her life will slip away. Her life was about to end before it had even begun. A pang of pain spread through my chest, mixed with numbness and a bone-chilling cold. In my past life, she was the one who personally pushed me off the balcony. In the final moment of my fall, I had already grabbed the hem of her clothes. If I just held on, I could at least take someone down with me. But that person is my daughter, whom I have loved and cherished for over 20 years, from a baby in swaddling clothes, to babbling her first words, to blossoming into a graceful young woman. She is the daughter I watched grow up, step by step. In that final moment, I ultimately let go. Little did I know, she had even prepared false evidence of my fall from the building. I cannot rest in peace, leaving my mother to bury her own child, her heart utterly broken with grief. Am I not her daughter, too? And is my own daughter not innocent in all this? In the end, her life was spared. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, Jyoti was transferred from the ICU to a general ward. This fever truly brought her to death's door. Her life was saved, but her liver and kidneys suffered irreversible damage, leaving her with lasting complications. The doctor hesitated before the family, then finally spoke in a low voice. I'm afraid this child may not live to adulthood. Jyoti, however, seemed full of energy at this moment. Her eyes darted around, curious about her surroundings, and she was more active and well-behaved than before. This was especially true when she saw Zhang Yangyang, becoming even more affectionate. Zhang Yangyang's maternal family seemed unaware of the baby-swapping incident. They doted on this granddaughter, who had nearly lost her life, holding her with endless love. She wouldn't let go. Jyoti obediently clung to the adult's clothes. She was affectionate with everyone, except for me. She would close her eyes the moment she saw me. After just a glance, I was being ushered out of the hospital by my mom. Just as I was about to step out of the hospital room, I remembered this familiar gesture. In her past life, whenever she was in a sulk, she'd close her eyes and turn her head away. How could such a tiny infant possess such a strong sense of self? I turned around and walked back, reappearing in Chijati's line of sight. Sure enough, the eyes that had just opened closed once more. I quietly stepped back. Zhang Yangyang's younger brother was holding a harmonica, tooting away as he tried to amuse her. The baby's attention was captured, her eyes seeming to light up as she watched the harmonica. I had the elders in stitches. I forced a cold smile too. That's when I knew for sure, she had been reborn as well. It seems she still doesn't know her fate is to die young. Kazati's gaze remained fixed on the harmonica, as if she were recalling the glorious days when she stood in the spotlight, performing music. But in this life, even if she has mastered the violin to perfection, without me, could she still become the concertmaster? Jouti, her grandmother picked her up, coaxing her as one would a kitten. Upon hearing that dreadful name, Kazati froze for a moment before bursting into loud sobs. Come on. The more she cried, the more enthusiastically her grandmother tried to soothe her. In the end, with no other choice, the old woman resorted to calling her by her childhood nickname, Little Egg. I couldn't help but laugh as I walked away. After I was discharged from the hospital, my mother-in-law volunteered to come and take care of me during my postpartum confinement. I knew the real reason wasn't to care for me, it was to get me to give up the top-tier maternity nurse for my sister-in-law. Besides, was she really here to help me? She was just here to enjoy herself. In my past life, when I was in confinement, she cooked at home entirely to her own taste. Everything was oily, salty, and spicy. I couldn't even touch it. Ugh, I've told her countless times, but it's always the same. To outsiders, she just says I'm a picky, difficult daughter-in-law. She even schemes money from the grocery fund to give to the second son's family. When she makes soup, she eats a portion herself, sends a portion to the second son's family, saves a portion for Qixing, and then waters down what's left before serving it to me. They refuse to buy formula, insisting I breastfeed exclusively, all under the guise of it being for the baby's own good. At night, they'd sleep soundly, leaving me to handle the baby alone. They wouldn't even let Qixing help, only ever paying lip service to the idea. What's a grown man doing looking after a baby? Qixing has work tomorrow, we're home all day. Just leave the baby with us. Over time, Qixing stopped speaking up for me too. After a month of this torment, I was on the verge of postpartum depression by the time my confinement period ended. Ironically, my mother-in-law ended up earning a good reputation among the neighbors. In contrast, my sister-in-law, Zhang Yangyang, whose family isn't as well off as ours, had hired an excellent confinement nanny. When we met again at the baby's full-month celebration, her complexion was radiant and glowing. She had recovered remarkably well. That top-tier postpartum nanny was someone my husband, Qixing, pulled a lot of strings to find, but in the end, because my mother-in-law insisted on taking care of me during my confinement, we ended up giving her up to their family. All the good fortune went to Zhang Yangyang. We did all the hard work, only for someone else to reap the benefits. Watching my mother-in-law hauling her luggage into the living room, bag after bag, even after being told no, I knew she had already won over my soft-hearted husband. Honey, you've gone and made a decision for the two of us again. But this time, before my mother-in-law could even finish unpacking her things, my own mother walked right in with the postpartum nanny in tow. Oh, mother-in-law, have you come to look after Yingxian during her confinement? Our Yingxian is truly blessed. Not only did you hire a nanny for the two of them, but you're also here yourself, taking on all the hard work personally. Hire a postpartum nanny, what for? My mother-in-law was stunned for a second, then looked at the nanny. Didn't I tell you to go to the second son's house? My mom quickly cut her off, pulling out her phone to record a video for her social media feed. Look at Yingxuan's wonderful mother-in-law. Not only did she pay for the postpartum nanny, but she's also here herself, personally helping out during the confinement period because she just couldn't leave it to anyone else. Come on. Look at the camera. In-law, let's get a picture together. My mother-in-law pushed my mom's hand away and was about to get upset and argue back when she noticed the neighbors passing by outside poking their heads in to see what the fuss was about. My mom just went ahead and greeted everyone, even taking the postpartum nanny around to introduce her to all the neighbors. With all that commotion, the social media post went out anyway. My mother-in-law forced a smile and said, "Mother-in-law, please come in quickly, we shouldn't leave the door open, or Yingxian might catch a chill." My mom, thoroughly satisfied, had taken a long stroll and soaked up all the neighbors' compliments. Only then did she come back and settle on the sofa. scrolling through her social media feed while showing off and asking what we were having for dinner. Qixing was also a bit confused by the situation. But he first directed the postpartum nanny to get settled and then ordered food from the restaurant closest to home. My mother-in-law's face fell. My mom had shown up uninvited, and she'd even brought the postpartum nurse who was supposed to be at my brother-in-law's house. The real kicker was, my mom claimed the nurse had been hired and paid for by my mother-in-law. Postpartum care is expensive, you know. And this one seemed to be a top-tier, gold medal nurse, that must have cost her a fortune. My mother-in-law shot a withering glare at my mom, who was sitting arrogantly on the sofa, then switched to a warm, gentle expression as she entered my room. Yingxian, dear, she rubbed her hands together, her gaze involuntarily drifting to the baby sleeping soundly in my arms. What's the matter with your mother? I already said I was coming to take care of you during your confinement. Why on earth did she bring a maternity nurse along? A cold laugh echoed in my heart. From the very beginning, my husband and I had agreed to hire a postpartum doula with our own money. It was she who forced her way in, not only refusing to listen to reason and insisting on coming to care for me, but also going behind my back to get Qixing to agree to give the doula to his younger brother's family. And now, with her words, she's making it sound as if we're the ungrateful ones. Trying to have our cake and eat it too, I pulled the little cotton blanket up and covered the baby, shielding him from my mother-in-law's nauseating gaze. Seeing that I remained silent, my mother-in-law confidently laid out her plan. How about this? Since I'm already here to take care of you during your confinement, I'll surely be more attentive than any outsider. As for the postpartum doula, why not let the second son's family have her? Yang has no one to look after her. And it wouldn't be right for her own mother to come, would it? It just so happens you have a ready-made doula here. Passing her on would be perfect. I lifted my eyelids and said unhurriedly, Mom, you're getting on in years. It's time for you to enjoy the pleasures of family life. You really don't need to come and take care of me. The mother-in-law pursed her lips, a flicker of disdain in her eyes, nearly rolling them in contempt. I actually laughed, if you ask me. You should hire a postpartum doula for your sister-in-law too. That way, you can have some peace and quiet yourself. My mother-in-law clearly hadn't expected her once pliable daughter-in-law to be so difficult to handle now. Her eyes widened in shock, as if she'd just heard the most outrageous thing imaginable. Her whole body trembled with rage. Do you think everyone is as wasteful as you are? Every single penny you spend was earned through my son's blood, sweat, and tears. She paced back and forth in the room, wagging her finger at me, huffing and puffing with indignation. Let's not use this postpartum nanny anymore. Give her to the second son's family. You're the eldest daughter-in-law. You should be considerate of your brother-in-law's household. I had already settled it with Xingzi, and yet, you don't trust me, your own grandmother, but you'd rather put your faith in a complete stranger. Little Bao was frightened and began wailing, hearing the commotion. My husband rushed into the room. My mother-in-law and I were locked in a silent tug-of-war, neither willing to yield. The room was so quiet. The only sounds were the infant's cries and the soft, coaxing murmurs. Qixing glanced at his furious mother, then at my stony face, before leading her out of the room. Mom, let's just listen to Yingxian and keep the maternity nurse. Why don't you go stay at Gongzi's place for a while? It's practically the same. You have no idea what you're talking about. The maternity nurse was soothing the baby. My husband was trying to placate his mother, and my own mom. Oh, Yangyang's mom. How is Yangyang recovering from her C-section? Don't you worry about a thing. My mother-in-law spent 30,000 to hire a top-tier postpartum nanny for her. Between sisters-in-law, we wouldn't play favorites. When Yangyang is discharged and starts her confinement month, we'll definitely hire an even more expensive one. My mom had added my sister-in-law's mother as a friend at the hospital earlier, and right now she's on a video call with her. What? My in-law looks upset. No, she doesn't. My mom turned around and came face to face with my mother-in-law, who was seething with pent-up anger. Her face flushed a deep, purplish red. What's the matter, dear-in-law? My mother asked, feigning ignorance while deliberately keeping the video call on. Her eyes darted, and then her expression suddenly darkened. Is it because you think the postpartum nanny is too expensive, so you won't hire one? I've already posted it on my social media. If you back out now, won't I become a laughingstock among my old friends? Isn't it only natural for a mother-in-law to contribute money and effort to care for her daughter-in-law during her postpartum confinement? How come it's different in your family? How did it come to this? Mom was being aggressive and looked absolutely livid. She angrily hung up the phone call that had been going so well just moments before. then sat down on the sofa with her hands on her hips. My mother-in-law tried to step forward to argue, but my husband held her back. Right then, her phone rang in her pocket at the worst possible moment. Mom shot a cold glance in her direction. It was Zhang Yangyang's mother calling, her temples throbbing with rage. The mother-in-law took a deep breath, pinching her fingers. Before finally stepping onto the balcony to answer the call, her words were now laced with flattery, a far cry from her earlier haughty demeanor. Zhang Yangyang was notoriously known around here as a shrew. In her first few years after marrying into the family, she and her mother-in-law would have minor squabbles every few days and major blowouts every week, and she would retreat to her parents' home every other fortnight. Her parents, of course, were no pushovers either. The phone call dragged on past midnight. My mother-in-law alternated between lamenting her miserable fate and throwing a fit, finally delivering an ultimatum to us, the young couple. If you insist on hiring a maternity nurse, that's your business, but you'll have to foot the bill yourselves. She packed up her barely unpacked luggage and moved out of our house that very night. As she left, she couldn't resist hurling one last curse. Ungrateful wretch, now that you have a wife, you've forgotten your own mother. Her husband, filled with guilt, saw his own mother off, only to turn and face his mother-in-law's icy glare. My, what a grand display of authority, the mother-in-law said coldly. Is this the kind of life our Xian had to endure in your household? Qi Xing was on the verge of tears, utterly helpless. In the end, despite all the drama, the mother-in-law still couldn't hire a postpartum nanny for Zhang Yangyang. First, it was too last minute, and no nannies were available between jobs. Second, Zhang Yangyang's standards were too high. She insisted on a top-tier, gold medal nanny, and her mother-in-law simply wasn't willing to foot the bill. She threw herself on the floor and made a scene over and over, until somehow she managed to get Zhang Yangyang to back down. After a month of relative peace, my mother-in-law was back to planning the full-month celebration with a sour look on her face, with both children born on the same day. It was impractical to hold two separate full-month banquets. My mother-in-law's face was dark as thunder, clearly resentful about only receiving one set of gift money. When I saw them again at the banquet, Zhang Yangyang had lost the radiant glow from her previous life and instead looked utterly worn out. I heard she and her mother-in-law were at each other's throats during her postpartum confinement, and it seems she didn't come out of it any better off. Instead, she started paying more attention to her daughter, and even her usually biased mother-in-law couldn't help but praise Kazadi for being well-behaved, except when calling her by name. Yet, Kazadi herself seemed listless and dispirited, born with inherent weaknesses and then subjected to all sorts of self-destructive nonsense. It's no wonder it's not thriving. During the draw, she hesitated over the circle of items, but in the end, she picked up her little uncle's harmonica with a look of distaste. Even the crevices were caked with dirt and grime, and the harmonica was still damp with fresh spit. It seems she just couldn't let go of her musical dream after all. I deliberately pulled the harmonica from her tiny hands. The real business is to bring your mother a baby brother. What future is there in playing a harmonica? The adults present all murmured in agreement. Kazadi turned her head away in a huff, refusing to look at me. Qi Gang, the second son, outright tossed the harmonica aside and shoved a photo into her hands, a picture of a perfect family of four, with both a son and a daughter. She burst into loud, wailing sobs. Qi Zhaodi's relatively good days would only last these 2 years. 2 years later, when Qi Yaozu was born, that's when her real troubles, and tears, would begin. She was no longer an only child, but had become her brother's servant. The following years passed relatively peacefully, thanks in no small part to her efforts. Qi Zhaodi, with memories from her past life, was sensible and precocious. Since she had indeed ushered in a younger brother, Zhang Yangyang seemed to show her a kind of mercy, and actually began treating her much better. But all that goodness came at the cost of her own sacrifices. She had to do her brother's laundry, cook breakfast for the whole family, give her mother shoulder massages, buy cigarettes for her father, and help her grandmother with the grocery shopping. As for princess dresses, little cakes, or a violin, such things simply didn't exist in her world. To her mother, the only thing worth showing off was her top-of-the-class grades. In this life, she had to rack her brains and exhaust every effort to obtain the very material comforts that had come to her effortlessly in her past life, and even then, they were nowhere near as good as what she had before. As usual, I bought new clothes and scarves for the whole family for the New Year's trip back home. This time, however, I deliberately chose for Qi Zhaodi, a black one. As expected, when it came to choosing between her precious son and her less valued daughter, Chijadi lost completely. Zhang Yangyang snatched her clothes away without a moment's hesitation. This time, it was Chijadi who was left shivering in the winter cold. How could she, who had been accustomed to a life of comfort in her previous life, possibly bear this, in this lifetime? Forget about being a principal player, she can't even get a foot in the door of the music world. When she was 7, she threw herself into my arms, crying and shouting that I was her real mother. She shoved my biological daughter, Yao Yao, into the snow. While a child's words carry no malice, the expressions on everyone's faces turned grim. Before I could even react, Zhang Yangyang yanked her back and landed a solid slap across her face. How dare you spout such nonsense? Haven't I always treated you well? Say that again and I'll hit you every single time. Chijadi fell into the snow like a kite cut loose, crashing down with a heavy thud. But when I turned, what I saw was Zhang Yangyang carefully helping my daughter to her feet. Her 5-year-old brother was making faces at her, winking and sticking out his tongue. Kizadi's face turned pale, then flushed red, whether from the cold or the beating was unclear. I helped her up and brushed the snow off her worn-out clothes. Now it was her turn to wear someone else's hand-me-downs. She was no longer the cherished only child of our family, but merely Yaozu's older sister. The child has a fever and is delirious. Sure enough, when the mother-in-law touched the child's forehead, it was alarmingly hot. Yet, just that afternoon, she had made Chijadi wash all the vegetables for the New Year's Eve dinner in cold water. You silly child, why didn't you say you were feeling unwell? Instead of talking such nonsense, my mother-in-law was about to use her old folk remedy again, trying to sweat the fever out of her. Over the past few years, Chijadi's health had been poor, with one minor ailment after another. Zhang Yangyang and her mother-in-law's limited patience and goodwill towards her were worn down. With each passing illness, even when she fell sick, it was rare for them to take her to the hospital. Not only did Zhang Yangyang not stop her mother-in-law, she even fetched a feather duster and began whipping Chijadi with it. You've ruined our perfectly good New Year's Eve dinner, you jinx. It's the Lunar New Year. Don't hit the child. Only Qixing spoke up in her defense. In our previous life, when she was our daughter, she never suffered a single beating. We, her parents, cherished her dearly, holding her in the palms of our hands. After I was pushed from the high-rise, Qixing was utterly heartbroken and fell into despair. She seized this opportunity to persuade him to divide the family assets and give them to her biological father and mother. Later, as he lay on his sickbed, racked with illness and with little time left, he couldn't scrape together a single penny for his own treatment, because all the money was taken by that ungrateful wretch. Kizadi stood frozen in place, neither fleeing nor hiding. Her soul was that of an adult, yet the dignity and pride that should belong to one had been worn away by the daily beatings and abuse. She looked down at her own hands. The once slender hands that could play world-class music had grown coarse and clumsy, now covered in chilblains. Can a bird, fallen into the whirlpool of life, ever return to its noble perch? The fever raged on, making the night seem endless. In that boundless darkness, only scattered snowflakes drifted up from the abyss. Chijadi began to ramble deliriously once more. Her past life was so vastly different from her current reality that she began to wonder if it had all been just a magnificent dream. Her mother-in-law bundled her up with thick quilts again and again, until, worn out from the effort, she simply went back to her own room to sleep, figuring the girl would pull through eventually. That's how they had gotten by all these years. Kizadi broke out in a cold, clammy sweat. When Yao Yao brought her some water, she seemed to come to her senses a little. She stared at Yao Yao, as if struck by a horrifying thought. Her eyes were wide and fixed, and then she began to sob uncontrollably. She thought of her previous life, of the child who had died before the age of 10 under Zhang Yangyang's care. In this life, she was that child. She was 7 years old. Kizadi's fever raged on, and Qixing, unable to bear it any longer, called an ambulance for her on New Year's Eve. Red and blue lights flashed across the snowy ground. Many villagers, finding the sight inauspicious, stayed indoors, missing the fireworks. The two got into the vehicle amidst the family's angry shouts and curses. Clutching at Qixing's pant leg as if it were a lifeline, Kizadi knelt on the ground, weeping and pleading, calling him dad one moment and uncle the next. All I wanted was for him to take me in. Zhang Yangyang, standing beside me, kept calling Qixing. Getting my daughter medical help was one thing, but the cost was the real problem. Calling an ambulance on New Year's Eve was bad enough luck. What if they couldn't save her and she died at the start of the new year? That would be even worse. The most important thing is not to bring any bad luck to Yaozu, her precious son. What's the point in saving her? The doctors said she wouldn't live past childhood anyway. All these years, I've just pretended I never had this daughter. Her being alive will only block Yazu's good fortune. Fine, brother, hand her the phone, let me talk to her. Zhang Yangyang mercilessly delivered the grim prognosis that Qi Jiadu would not live to adulthood, and ignoring the wailing on the other end, ordered her to get out of the ambulance, go home, now, Mom. Even from a distance, I could hear the heart-wrenching, desperate scream. Zhang Yangyang furrowed her brow, held the phone away from her ear, and muttered a curse under her breath. Why would you do that to me? Qi Yao isn't, she's not, I'm your daughter, I am. After Qi Jiadu revealed the truth, Zhang Yangyang muttered quietly, what nonsense, she must be delirious from the fever. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her phone. Without even a glance at the fireworks, she hurriedly carried Qi Yaozu back into the house. What good is knowing the truth now? What good is regret? You reap what you sow. Qi Jiadi stayed in the hospital for several days, and aside from her uncle, Qi Xing, not a single person came to visit her. She spent the new year alone and utterly isolated in the hospital. On the day she was discharged, a dreary, overcast sky began to let fall a fresh flurry of snow. Her condition had improved significantly, both physically and mentally, as if the prophecy that she wouldn't live past 18 was the final straw that broke her, or as if Zhang Yangyang and her mother-in-law were now consumed with regret. Qi Jiadi, she started running wild at home. She began deliberately antagonizing her mother-in-law and her own mother. Knowing they were in the wrong, the two women initially tolerated her behavior, but eventually reached their limit. Zhang Yangyang once again picked up the feather duster and gave her a good thrashing. I'm your own mother, I gave birth to you, and now you think you can walk all over me, is that it? Even if I did something wrong, she trailed off mid-sentence. Back then, she had watched as her mother-in-law dressed Kazadi in hand-me-downs and prepared her formula. She had also turned a blind eye to the infant's ceaseless wailing. See, all these years, she was treated like a servant, ordered around at will. She had always believed that child was my daughter, that's why she remained unmoved. Zhang Yangyang sat on the ground, weeping with her head in her hands. Kazadi stood there, perfectly calm. Then, using Zhang Yangyang's phone, she called the police. There's a case of child abuse. The entire family, save for the precious heir Yazu, was rounded up and neatly presented at the police station. The soft-hearted policewoman held Qi Jiadi's frail body, her tears falling in drops onto the girl's hair, which was as dry as straw. My husband and I were summoned to testify as witnesses. Thanks to the mother-in-law's silver tongue and Qi Xing's overly obliging nature, the group didn't face much in the way of punishment. Qi Jiadi was completely unprepared for this outcome. She completely broke down, pointing at Qi Xing and roaring as if he had wronged her in some profound way. How can you say that? You've watched me suffer all these years. How could you? You are. That final word ultimately remained unspoken. Once outside the police station, the mother-in-law was positively triumphant, letting out a contemptuous snort. Who is he? He's your uncle, right? Humph, he's my son. Of course he's on my side. Kazadi turned her head away, her neck stiff as she wiped her tears, but the family's sense of guilt toward her had completely evaporated. She actually called the police on them. If they had really been jailed and gotten a criminal record this time, the consequences would have been unthinkable. Even though Kazadi was living on borrowed time, the Qi family's precious heir, Yaozu, almost missed his chance to take the civil service exam. After dutifully seeing us, the couple, off, Zhang Yangyang and her mother-in-law closed the door and gave Kazadi another brutal beating. That finally broke her spirit for good. Death was closing in on her. Time and time again, it reminded me of that child's first time on stage. They must have been about this age back then. It was late spring. Under the brilliant stage lights, she stood at the very center, bathed in their glow. In her little dress, she didn't feel the chill at all. Her violin performance in that first competition wasn't her best. She only won a bronze. Yet she was overjoyed and promised me she would practice even harder. I don't know when it started, but practicing the violin became, in her words, a form of pressure I was imposing on her. I watched the gate grow smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror. In my past life, when my own daughter was this age, what kind of life did she lead? That tightly shut gate gradually shrank to a tiny duh. Spring still felt a long way off. I hadn't expected the day I'd return to my hometown again to come so soon. The ancestral home was utterly consumed by a raging fire, and the once boisterous Qi family members were nowhere to be found. Qi Xing's legs gave way, and he stumbled forward, collapsing into a heap of ashes, wailing for his parents. According to the neighbors, it was Qi Jiadi who bought the gasoline, muttering at the time about never being cold again, something about a carnival, spring, and the like words. and the Chi family members who were screaming to save their own lives the moment the fire broke out. Yet, for some reason, not a single one of them managed to escape. The sole survivor turned out to be the 5-year-old Chi Yaozu. It was a miraculous stroke of luck amidst the tragedy. He was wounded in his manhood, and the Chi family line was thus destined to end. A stroke of misfortune within a stroke of luck. As the sole eyewitness, Chi Yaozu was placed under special protective custody. When he awoke, he had become somewhat unhinged. "My sister is trying to kill me, she's going to kill me." She was still singing in the fire, gesturing with both hands. "Where's mom? Where is she? Is mom dead? Wah? Am I going to die?" From his rambling and incoherent account, the police pieced together the truth of what happened. It was indeed Chi Zhaodi who set the fire. At first, it seemed everyone could have escaped, but she took Chi Yaozu hostage and ordered everyone not to run. Zhang Yangyang was the only one who stopped. Only a mother's heart aches to part with her child. The mother-in-law hesitated for only a moment, and Chi Gang didn't even look back. Things like the Chi family's lineage and prized heir meant nothing when his own life was on the line. Kazadi held a knife to Kyozu's throat, her emotions running high as she tearfully rambled about past lives and present fates. Before she could finish, Chi Gong and her mother-in-law had already turned back and returned. The main gate had been locked tight long ago. They were about to jump from the second floor, and as fate would have it, Kazadi was standing right at the top of the stairs. Thick smoke billowed everywhere. Before Chi Zhaodi could utter a few words, she was choked by the fumes and lost her grip on the knife. Chi Gang was the first to charge upstairs, only to be stabbed in the lower back by her. The mother-in-law was terrified, trembling and not daring to step forward. Seizing this moment, Chi Yaozu dashed toward the second floor. "Mom, come with me. I heard my uncle asking you for money. If you'd known it was me from the start, would you have treated me this way?" Zhang Yangyang remained silent, his figure obscured by the thick smoke. Chi Zhaodi staggered, and her mother-in-law seized the chance to step forward and shove her to the ground. "You jinx, what did I do to deserve a cursed wretch like you?" But Zhang Yangyang grabbed her by the hair, her furious roar choked with sobs. "This is all your fault. You're the one who did this to my daughter. You're the one who did this to my family." Amidst the pitch-black smoke and searing flames, Chi Yaozu looked back and saw only two women locked in a struggle. Hearing a fragmented, hoarse melody, his heart hammering in his chest, he didn't stop to wonder why no one was following him, and trembling, he jumped from the second floor. "I couldn't believe it when I opened my eyes and saw my uncle there." He threw himself into Qixing's arms, crying his eyes out. "Uncle, the police officer said that since I've survived a great disaster, good fortune must follow. I've lost my home now. Can I come live with you? Grandma says Yao Yao is just a girl, and she'll be married off sooner or later." My expression gradually turned cold, with tears in his eyes. Qixing gently pried Yaozu's chubby little hand away and refitted the oxygen mask over his face, fearing the fire alone might not finish them all off. Chi Zhaodi also laced the family's food with pesticide. As we left the hospital, the snow began to fall again. Spring still feels a long way off, but spring will come. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave a comment below. See you in the next video.